Hello, you are watching The Nation. I'm PASHA RAHIM. Now, as we come into 2026, Malaysia's political scene is once again at an interesting point. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has been very clear about what he wants to do: keep the country united, ensure stability, push through long overdue reforms, and take a firm stand against corruption. At the end of the day, it really comes down to this: can unity and leadership deliver the kind of change Malaysians are expecting? To help us walk this through, we're joined by LIYANA MARZUKI, former senior federal counsel at the Attorney General's Chambers and a political observer. Welcome, LIYANA.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. Now, let's kick off our discussion today. Let's talk about leadership and also, the whole idea of the unity government. Now, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has urged all Malaysians not to underestimate the Madani government's efforts to safeguard unity and stability, and we've seen this effort in the past couple of years. From your perspective as a political observer, how important is this message, now at this point in 2026?
Thank you, Pasha. Thank you, Bernama. This is my third time in Bernama.
Welcome back.
Truly honoured, truly grateful to be here. Well, let's just unpack the message first by the Prime Minister. We cannot underestimate the stability and unity that has been provided for by this government for the past 3 years. We have seen during the previous administration, where we changed many times the Prime Minister, the Premiership has changed. Now, what he's trying to convey is that I have provided that political stability. Now, I want to move on from survival mode to repair or restoration mode, and all rakyat has to be with me. I think that's the message that he wants to convey. But of course, from the rakyat standpoint, we appreciate the fact that stability is there, political stability is there. We shouldn't take for granted. But also, what we want to look forward is delivery and also performance. That also shouldn't be taken for granted, and it has to be the center stage now.
Right. And so it has been 3 years since the Madani government has, taken leadership. And the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that peace and stability today are the result of close cooperation among parties within the unity government. Earlier on, a lot of people were skeptical. They didn't think that the unity government was going to work. But today, 2026, how effective has this unity narrative been in actually, translating into real governance and real outcomes that voters can actually feel on the ground? Are we actually seeing real unity, within our neighbours, within our friends and such?
Pasha, I think before I answer the question, I think for the record, the wisdom for unity government, we shouldn't give full credit to this Madani government. It was first proposed and dictated by the Conference on Rulers, the King, the Young Ditonangon, post PRU 15. They dictated that the political party has to sit together and form a unity government. And I think that is, an idea that we can see is workable now. We have political stability for the first 3 years. Now we move on to real political reform. Now the question is whether that narrative or that story of reform really translate into what people feel on the ground, the man on the street. I think when you talk about political unity, it's always been with the political elite. They are the one who's supposed to be united to move forward. But in terms of the narrative on the ground, and people on the street like me, you are united, but what's for me? So we want to hear more, the issue of, for example, cost of living, economic pressure, public delivery system. I think move on from the political unity, political stability. The next is to look at the people's narrative, people's agenda. And for me, stability provide the, the engine for us to move forward, but delivery is a key point for us to, chart the path going forward.
Speaking about stability, moving on, let's talk about the ministerial reshuffle. Now, the Prime Minister just announced a reshuffle in the cabinet, which many see as both a political and also administrative reset going into 2026. And if you're talking about, things happening on ground with the people, this definitely affects us, beyond individual appointments and also portfolios. What political signal do you think the Prime Minister is sending through this reshuffle? Was it necessary, especially at this point in time?
Yeah, I think after PRU 15, this is the third cabinet reshuffle that he has conducted, and for PRU 15, post PRU 15 is all about political negotiation. Now I think it's more towards, delivery. After 3 years, it's all about delivery. If you do not perform, I will change you. That's the narrative. And I think he's very smart in a way that he knows this has political consideration to it, because the coalition, this is the toughest political coalition ever in our Malaysian history, because you have DAP and UMNO sitting together. Yeah, sworn enemies, totally different DNA and all that. But now he knows what to pick. He picked economic and finance as something that he cannot compromise. He picked his best people. For example, Dato' Johari Ghani from MITI, and he retained Tengku Zafrul at MIDA as chairman of MIDA. He knows that investment ecosystem is very important for Malaysia, and you have Amir Hamzah then. And besides that, I think he compromised in terms of political patronage and put more Sabahan there, post PRN Sabah, and he put his own people like Akmal Nasir, which is like actually the team with his ex or former deputy president. It's all about power consolidation. So I think it's balanced up in a way, but in the eyes of the normal rakyat, we want to see technocrats in, or bureaucrats in. So for those who do not understand the political dynamics, it's something that is a bit disappointed to what he announced. But for the rest, I think this is needed so far at 3 years, the second phase of his administration.
Okay, so if we were to look at strengthening policy delivery, does this reshuffle, in your view, does it genuinely, is it able to achieve that, or is it more about managing coalition dynamics within the unity government?
It's not either or. I think it's a bit of both. Of course, you have this. I said before, this is the toughest coalition ever. He has to manage, and it's normal in coalition politics. You have to manage the internal dynamics. So you have that bit of portion, as I explained before. He catered for Sabahan politicians, and he appointed Deputy Minister of Religious Affairs, which is like for Sabahan narrative, and also he also consider the segment that he doesn't want to compromise, which is economy and finance. So the answer to that is his balancing act between the political dynamics and the need for proper governance. And many said that nobody envy the position that he has now. Is the balancing act that is the toughest job to do.
Not at all. It is a delicate, very, very delicate balance to maintain, and as you said, it's not an easy job being the Prime Minister. He has also highlighted the civil service as the backbone of policy implementation and also reform, and with the recent announcement for their pay increase, we are expecting our civil servants to perform, especially in services. Now, how critical is the role of the service, of the civil service, in ensuring that this reshuffle delivers real impact, beyond the political optics?
Definitely, civil service is is the backbone for the reform or for all the transformation that he inspired to do. And I think he did a good job of managing them first, giving, their increment and all that, and make them happy with all this, for example, fixing of quarters and all other perks. I think the service is with him. And we can see that through PRK and PRN, the civil service has shifted their loyalty and their votes to the government. I think that's what he did. And for me, if you have a reform, the political master up there is the one that dictate policy, but implementation and execution on the ground, you still need an independent and very professional civil service to make sure that whatever reform that they want really impacted the ground.
Yeah, for sure, because they are the ones who will be implementing, or they're the ones who are literally the machines on ground who will be making sure that the government runs smoothly. Let's move on and just speak a little bit about political tensions. Now, let's talk about the PN crisis and also the UMNO youth pressure. On the opposite side, Perikatan Nasional has been dealing with internal strain and also their own leadership challenges. How does this internal crisis with PN affect Malaysia's broader political landscape, stability as we move through 2026?
Yeah, we have to I mean, looking from governance standpoint, in any democracy, we do need a strong position for check and balance.
Yeah.
You cannot have a super strong government without check and balance, because they will be complacent, they will do stay array and all that. But opposition for the past 3 years, my own opinion is that instead of providing check and balance, they are more toward destabilizing the government with all the move, for example, Dubai move, the Atap, and the Turun Anwar and all that. So we cannot see full-fledged check and balance.
Right.
It's more like they want to take over as fast as possible. They want the government to collapse. But now, since there's this political turmoil, so to speak, in PN, I think in terms of stability standpoint, we now rest assured that this government will survive until end of the term, until PRU 16. So in terms of stability, I think that provide the assurance that the next real competition and political war will be in PRU 16 or GE 16.
Do you think we'll be expecting an election in Perlis, a PRK?
PRK?
Yeah, in Perlis.
I don't think there will be PRK. They have announced that PRK in Perlis, they have been appointed the MB recently, right? So I don't see any move towards that, because it's literally settled with the appointment of the MB or Menteri Besar.
So basically what we need now essentially is a functioning opposition, which we haven't seen in the past 3 years. Now, at the same time, UMNO Youth has also publicly called for the party to leave the unity government, and this move or this call has obviously sparked renewed political debate. How serious is this call from UMNO Youth politically, and does it pose a real threat to the stability of the unity government, or is this just all talk?
Yeah, I think it's a bit academic now, because just now the president of UMNO has announced that they will stay with the unity government until the end of the term. But historically, we know that UMNO Youth always use that political theatric.
Right, always making a lot
of noise. Whether that's a threat, I don't think it's a threat. It's majorly noise for them to gather support at the grassroots level, because they have to translate the grievances of grassroots post, for example, addendum issue and Datuk Sri Najib's verdict recently.
But I mean, like you said, they've always been the arm that makes noise. Has this strategy worked throughout the years?
For their demographic, yes. For their demographic, but they have to understand now the most powerful bloc in political scene is actually the thinking middle, the silent majority. They are the one who decide election result. And since 2011 until now, nearly 4 million voters have shifted their vote from UMNO or from BN to somebody else or another coalition. So I think the narrative should be on the thinking middle and the silent majority, rather than focusing on their own preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and this whole strategy of making noise and just getting people to fight against each other on ground, it just needs to change, right? Let's talk about institutional reforms and also democratic legacy. Now, this is something that we've always talked about, especially in our long-standing political history, parties especially. The government has announced plans to table several major institutional reform bills, starting with separating the roles of the Attorney General and the public prosecutor. How significant is this move in terms of strengthening institutions and also in restoring public confidence in the system? Because we always say that it's at the end of the day it's controlled by so and so, whoever is the government of the day.
Coming from a legal service, I was Deputy Public Prosecutor for AG Chambers. I think this is the most significant reform that has been, long awaited by many civil society, think tank, and all that. So, the reason being because we know that law can be the weapon for political vendetta, and you have this separate role between the Attorney General and also the Public Prosecutor, meaning there won't be conflict of interest by the advisor of the government and the one taking the role of prosecuting anyone. No one is above the law, the rule of law. So it's a significant reform, and for me, it will instill confidence by international audience, investors, and of course, it will instill confidence of our own rakyat. You know that with this separation, inshallah, if everything come into play, we will know that public prosecutor is not under the subject or under the instruction by the government.
Right. Realistically, though, how long is this going to take?
I read recently, they said they have the bill already.
Right.
They're going to table it during the next parliamentary session. So most probably, hopefully, the effective date for enforcement will be this year. And I think that is good. They put that as the first aim to be tabled this year, and I think taking lessons from YNDB and many other cases before this, I think that is very, very huge accomplishment for Madani government.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will be looking forward to the reforms as well. In addition to that, the government also plans to introduce the Ombudsman Bill. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Ombudsman Bill.
Correct.
And the Freedom of Information Bill to strengthen accountability and transparency. So are we seeing the foundations of a stronger accountability framework, or will the real test lie in how these laws are actually implemented and if they're actually practiced?
I think it's very timely to announce that we have ombudsman and also the FOI law, Freedom of Information law, post the verdict of YMDB.
Right.
So ombudsman law will provide for accountability by the government, meaning the public can now lodge report with any abuse of power to this independent body without going through police and court.
Right.
So that provide accountability. At the same time, the FOI law will provide for transparency, and of course accountability and transparency is cornerstone of democracy, and we have to appreciate it. But me being last time a legal drafter as well for AG Chambers, we can do the most beautiful bill. At the end of the day, is implementation and is execution is the key. So that's why I think after this, what we want to see is how serious is the political will, how sincere it is for them to implement the law. It's not just on paper, but it has to be, really benefiting the rakyat at the ground level.
Right. So realistically, what are some of the changes, or what are some of the, real effects that we can see from the implementation of these bills?
I think if you want to take it at the very broad level, for example, if you have the same case in the future, like the YMDB,
right.
The worst kleptocracy ever. So with this bill, we have the legal infrastructure, the legal structure where the rakyat can demand information without them saying that, oh, this is secret, this is official secret and all that. And they have an independent body besides the court to really, for the rakyat really to, lodge reports and, really to have that fourth estate of looking at the what government is doing, especially if there's a breach of criminal law and so on and so forth. I think that is good and will hinder government to be, really on their toe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it will be a safer space, I suppose, for whistleblowers,
correct,
or for whoever. Or you don't even need to be a whistleblower if this were to take place, and anyone could lodge a report with regards to misuse of power, etc. So this allows for anyone to lodge a report. Is this what I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah. You have an independent body that really look at the government. Is besides the court, that is ombudsman.
Right. Okay. So another major proposal is a bill to limit the Prime Minister's tenure to a maximum of 10 years or 2 full terms. Now, politically speaking, how transformative could this be for Malaysia's democratic system and also our political culture? Is 2 terms enough time, for example, for a prime minister or a government to effect real change?
I believe this is common in many developed nations, right? We had that in Indonesia last time, where Jokowi was, that limit of 2 terms, and they tried to amend the law for him to stay longer. But this is very common, it's timely, it's needed for Malaysia. We had before Prime Minister who has 22 years and coming back again 22 months. I think this will promote political succession, leadership succession, very important. And this one will shift. This also will shift, for me, I think, the instead of political personality politics, rather than focusing what we call very fanatic or taksub on pemimpin, political fanatics, towards, delivery, values-driven and performance-driven politics. I think that is good.
Will this then also ensure that in the future, whenever we have a change of government or whenever we have a change of leader, that policies remain and they don't change with the leaders?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily, because every prime minister will try to bring their own policy onto the table and their own legacy to the table. But at least they know that they have this 10 years cap that they need to deliver, or else they won't get second terms, and the policy has to be people-driven, performance-driven and all that, and it will go towards that. Singapore is different because Singapore, they have that structural system, very, very structured, that they have senior minister after they become prime minister, senior minister, and they continue with the political will of that dominant party to do the succession plan. For Malaysia, I don't think that will address, the policy will remain the same, and then we have a polarized political dynamic between parties. I don't think they won't assure us that policy will remain different. The same, but it will provide that they will think about delivery and performance first, rather than, personality politics.
Right. Okay. So we still have to figure out that
that element.
That part of the problem still needs a little bit of fixing.
Correct.
All right. So altogether, these reforms, it does point to a broader governance agenda under the Madani government. Do these initiatives represent a genuine systemic change, or are they also a part of shaping a long-term political legacy for the current administration?
I believe
you did speak about legacy.
Legacy just now. I believe if you are you hold the political leadership of the country, at the end of the day, you want your legacy to be remembered.
True.
Right? So all the reform, at the end of the day, you want to retain and sustain that legacy, and this is what they are being doing now. And I think for the past 30 years, this has been the war cry for the Pakatan Harapan or Pakatan Rakyat, or for Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim. So he's like transforming it into the result on the ground. This war cry is now we've seen as the reform that they announced yesterday, and I think more coming in. They shifted from economic reform last 3 years. Now they're shifting into institutional reform. This is all the war cry that have been, crying, the war cry has been used for the past 30 years. It will be the legacy. You have Tun Tengku Abdul Rahman, Bapa Kemerdekaan, you have Bapa Pemudanan. Maybe if they do it right, within 5 years or 10 years time, this will be Bapa Reformasi Negara, who knows.
And he has been the one who has been shouting about Reformasi all of these years. And if all of this, whether or not it becomes a political legacy, if it is for the betterment of the country, that's fine. I think the issue is, when it comes to policies that flip-flops every time there is a government change. Looking ahead, for the rest of 2026, LIYANA, what do you think are some of the major political developments that we should be watching out for, both risks and also opportunities?
I think you talk about opportunity first.
Oh, sure.
Opportunity, I believe that this is, with this government, there are many things that we hope they can do, and I think reforms such as the 2 terms limitation for premiership, I don't think any other government before this, willing enough.
No, because they all wanted to be in power.
Yeah, willing enough to do it, and we believe that if they sincere enough to implement this, this will be the legacy that they can carry on, and we appreciate that. that this is the chance for us to heal as a nation with all these reforms, and it's needed not just for us, for our children, our grandchildren, and for nation, and we will support that. But however, we don't want this, there's a risk of just this being rhetoric on political narrative. What we need to do is now to be vigilant, to make sure that the reform has, the follow through, the follow up, the follow through until the end, and make sure that the reform is not just on paper, but really felt by the rakyat on the ground, on the man on the street. That's most important.
Right, definitely. Now, as Malaysia moves through 2026, the real test will not just be political unity, but also whether that unity delivers reform, stability, and results that the people can truly feel. Now, the choices made this year will shape not just the political landscape, but the country's direction for many, many years to come. Thank you very much to our special guest today, LIYANA MARZUKI. Until we meet again, stay informed with Bernama TV. Thank you for watching.